everybody. This is a special edition of The World This Week, this time from Herzliya Conference here at IDC, one of Israel's top academic institutions. And we'll start with Professor Uriel Reichman. Hello. President and founder of IDC. What can we expect from this Herzliya Conference this time?
Well, we are looking into dealing with the balance of the national strengths and security of the State of Israel. And more than in the past, we are dealing with a whole range of topics that have a bearing on our national strengths and security.
We should say that the Herzliya Conference is really the most prestigious conferences in Israel in terms of policy makers, international guests, and so on. And I want to ask you about Israel 2014 in terms of policy making, international stance. What's your assessment?
Well, I cannot give it to you in brief, but let me say the following. National strengths is dependent on many issues. It depends on its economic standing. It depends on the military might of a nation. It depends on the international relationships and its technology. But all of it is only a part of the right assessment of national security and strengths. The most important element, in my view, is the commitment of the people of the country.
But when it comes to policy, this thing is about policy. There's a criticism about Israeli policy or lack of policies. How do you reflect
the
on
question
that?
is, there are many policies. The question is, what is a salient policy? My view is, and I'm absolutely together with what Ben-Gurion said. Ben-Gurion in 1951, at the height of the immigration wave, Ben-Gurion said that the future of the nation is not dependent on its technology, its economy, or its military might. It depends on its moral standing. Now, moral standing means that the way you treat the citizens, the economic gap, the sense of the morality of the leadership, the way a country is run, all of it has a tremendous bearing on the future of a nation and its power. Now, if you are speaking about a policy, it's not one policy. You have a policies that you have to develop insofar as the dealing with the Palestinians, the issue of policies that you have to develop vis-a-vis what is happening, the crazy situation happening in the neighboring countries. There is a question of economic policies. There is a question of social policies, the international relations. You cannot speak of one policy. Many policies to be adopted, and in my view, we are lagging behind in all policies altogether.
Oh, we're finally getting there.
What is needed is to somehow enable the political leadership to take a little bit time out of their political aspirations and put them and help them to deal with the burning issues and the very difficult task facing our nation. And this conference is trying to do exactly that, is to open our eyes into the rapidly changing world around us and trying to survey new attitudes in many aspects. One of the topics that will be dealt in the conference relates directly to our role as an academic institution. We believe that we are facing a new reality of academic education. And that will be one of the topics which I will personally address.
Also, speaking in international channel here, you emphasize international students and programs here, right?
Yeah, IDC is the first international university in Israel. 25% of our student body comes from 86 different countries from all over the globe. And that creates a very interesting environment here.
Professor Reichman, I thank you very much.
You are most welcome.
Continuing here at Herzliya Conference, with us is former Israeli ambassador to Washington, Michael Oren. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you, Jacob.
Aren't you happy you're not the ambassador now?
It is certainly probably less weight on my shoulder, though I'm working equally hard here at IDC.
Let's talk about the ambassador's work or job or what's happening between Israel and the United States right now. Is this one of the lowest points in recent memory?
The United States-Israel relationship, now 66 years old as this country, the United States being the first nation on earth to recognize Israel's independence in May 1948, has gone through several periods of ups and downs. In the 50s, President Eisenhower threatening even to sanction Israel over the Suez Crisis in 1956, the AWAC sale of American spy planes to Saudi Arabia that Israel objected to in 1984. There have always been ups and downs, as there are in any alliance, and this is an historic alliance between the United States and Israel. It is a special relationship, and it is one of, if not the most, multifaceted and deepest alliances which the United States has had with any foreign nation in the post-World War II period.
Yes, but still, look what's happening. You have the United States announcing that it will cooperate or work with the Palestinian government, including Hamas. You have Israel saying, they double-crossed us, they surprised us, we're going to build now settlements. How's that special relationships?
Well, there's a special relationship with the American people, there's a special relationship with the Congress of the United States.
But not between the Prime Minister and the President.
There is an unprecedented degree of defense cooperation, and there are, Jacob, differences over the peace process, and there are significant differences over the Iranian nuclear program. And no one's trying to whitewash anything. There are significant differences, and whether it be blaming Israel for the failure of the talks with the Palestinians, whether it be designating long-standing Jewish neighborhoods of Jerusalem as settlements, or in this case, rushing to recognize the Hamas-Fatah unity government. Those are very significant differences between the present Israeli government and the present government of the United States. And I would go one step further, is to say that just about any Israeli government would have a very similar problem with these policies.
I'm still trying to understand what went wrong.
Well, I think that the Obama administration, when it comes into the White House in 2009, has a certain worldview. Every administration is entitled to its worldview. Within that worldview, there's very strong security support for Israel, but there were also diplomatic differences, whether it be on the Palestinian peace issue or on the Iranian nuclear program. Now, most of the differences were tactical, and you have to say this. Why tactical? Because in the case of the Palestinians, Israel, like the United States, sought a two-state solution for two peoples, a negotiated solution, a negotiated face-to-face between Israelis and Palestinians. On the Iranian nuclear program, we also shared the goal of preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. The question is how to get to those goals, and that's where the main disagreements have been.
How do you see this really colossal failure of American policies here vis-a-vis the negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians?
I think that there were some fundamental assumptions that were adopted early on in Washington that proved to be ill-founded. For example, that by putting daylight between the United States and Israel on the diplomatic sphere, not on the security area, but in the diplomatic sphere, somehow that would bring the Arabs to the negotiating table. But in fact, it pushed the Arabs further away from the negotiating table, because in the Middle East, if you concede things up front, you're not perceived as being generous or magnanimous. You're perceived as giving up something without having to demand a price in return. So if the Palestinians simply concluded that if the Israelis were being pressured to make concessions, why should we come to the negotiating table and pay for those concessions? This is what happened. There's a different dynamic diplomatically here. Within Israel, the minute the administration said that these long-standing Jewish neighborhoods of Jerusalem that were built over the 1967 lines, which have been completely erased in Jerusalem. Israelis don't know that the neighborhood of Gilo, which has existed for more than 40 years, with 40,000 Jewish residents is built over that line, and they would never think of Gilo as a settlement. But from the administration said, okay, that Gilo is like one of the outlying settlements of the West Bank. And with that, a lot of credibility was lost. And credibility is very crucial in a peace process where Israelis are asked to not just make concessions, but to take tremendous risks.
Mr. Oren, I still think you're the ambassador.
No, that's not good. Jacob, I'm posting about. I just admit, I said to you things now that I probably wouldn't have said as ambassador, but I'm pointing out mistakes that were made over the course of the last 5 years, and we're still wrestling with those mistakes.
Ambassador Michael Oren, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here at the Herzliya Conference at IDC, we speak now with Professor Alex Mintz. Hello.
Hi.
Chairman of the conference, also the Dean of the Lauder School of Government here at IDC. What do you expect from this conference?
This conference focuses on 4 key components or topics. One is the future of the Middle East. The other is Israeli and global innovation. The third is reformulating Israel's national security doctrine. And the last one, and also very important, are the critical issues on the economy and social impact.
Sometimes there's a theme coming out of this conference. Years past, we've seen quite a few. Anything in mind for this time?
Yes, the future of the Middle East, various scenarios and their effect on Israel, the Middle East, and the globe. Specifically, we'll have a simulation which is unique because it's so international on the effect, global and regional effect of the security talks and nuclear talks in Geneva between the P5+1 with Iran. And the uniqueness of the simulation is we have several policymakers actually from the US, 2 from Russia, a Chinese, also 2 Iranian-born experts, and of course Israelis. This will be, I think, very important in order to assess the effect of the talks on regional stability.
Yeah, and for that you had a special survey conducted inside Iran. Tell me about it.
That's right. For the first time, we did a survey, the IPS, Institute for Policy and Strategy at the IDC, whereby we simply phoned 530 Iranians as a scientific academic study, and we asked them several questions. One was whether they will recognize Israel, and the surprising findings were that 40% of them said yes. Under some conditions, Israel should conclude a peace with the Palestinians, withdraw from territories, and so on. The other is that 74% want to establish full diplomatic and trade relations with the US. A major finding is that 45% will relinquish their nuclear military program in return for the full removal of sanctions. We also asked them about who is their main enemy in the world, and they said 40% of them said the US. Israel was 32% or second. Several said no one, and even a small minority said Iran itself.
But overall, these are the Iranians we never heard of.
That's right. The purpose of the study was to find out what the Iranians think, because we hear about their leadership, but that's not what the public necessarily thinks about Israel. The talks in Geneva, for example, there is a great support, 70% support, the talks in Geneva between the West and the...
That's interesting. Now, your expertise is political psychology and decision-making.
Correct.
Yeah, and there's no place in the world where there's so much psychology and so little decision-making as here in the Middle East, wouldn't you say so? Why?
Well, it's very complicated because we see that it's not just the psychology that affects choices that leaders make, but also the interface with politics, especially domestic politics, on both sides. In Israel, it's very clear it's a coalition government which has constraints on the prime minister on his decision. Similarly, on the Palestinian side, you have veto players, you have spoilers, you have supporters. It's very, very complicated.
Yeah, well, and how psychology, how apart does this play?
Well, it's the research that we are conducting is we are reversing we're doing reverse engineering of leaders' decisions in order to understand their what is called decision DNA, how they make decisions, and then to try to explain and predict their future decisions.
What's the difference between the Israeli psyche and the Arab psyche or Palestinian psyche?
I think it's a democracy that plays a major role here. We see it, the veto player, as I said, and the domestic politics much more in Israel. But overall, what is also extremely important are the findings that we also found in surveys on Israeli public opinion, that the religious factor plays a major role. Religious, for example, ultra-religious versus secular Israelis, they think on many issues differently, and same on the Arab side.
Professor Mintz, thank you very much and good luck with the conference.
Thank you.
And this has been a special edition of the World This Week from Herzliya Conference here at Herzliya. See you here next week.